Okay, that's pretty much where the camera was before, right? The boxes. Boxes! Hi, everybody. I'm back. It took like a full week to get rid of those boxes in the back. Do you ever just have one of those weeks where you don't have time to take care of yourself or your home? That's what I had. Every time I've tried to tidy my house this last week, I've felt my organs failing. So it's been hectic. And in addition to just being busy with work and school, my phone just collapsed. I was using an iPhone 6s for since 2015, like a long time, and I had to check it my phone while I was at work, and it just went, pew. The screen went dark. It would not charge. And I even took it to the phone repair place to look at it, and it wouldn't connect to computers. It's just done, which I didn't know that's what the end of an iPhone life cycle looks like. So it was fascinating to be part of that journey. But so I got a refurbished iPhone, and it's got this new camera. It's looking a lot better, but I almost feel like we're seeing things that man wasn't meant to see here. I feel like the cells of my skin have their own cells. Like, it's gonna be an adjustment for me. I'm just being a baby. My phone camera is too good. Anyways, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Notes by Alex. I'm going to do my best to do a recommendation video. I still think about this book all the time, but I'm kind of losing things that happened in it. I read it last year. It is called Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. It's one of those books where I liked it fine, and I finished it and moved on to other books. And I just find it's one of the books I read last year that is on my mind still. I still think about parts of it, and it still resonates with me emotionally, even if at the time I wasn't as jazzed on it as I thought I might be. Now I'm already like, I think I need to reread this at some point. First published in 1952 and immediately hailed as a masterpiece, Invisible Man is one of those rare novels that have changed the shape of American literature. It's not the first time I've heard claims like that. It won the U.S. National Book Award for Fiction in 1953. I've got stats pulled up here. I didn't memorize any of this. Modern Library ranked it 19th on the list of the 100 best English language novels of the 20th century. Time magazine included it in 100 best English language novels from 1923 to 2005. Since I learned about this book and read it this past year, I have heard a lot of praise and heard it's a classic of American literature. It's the quintessential American novel. So I don't know why in my English degree, my degree of English literature, I had never heard of it. It did not come up on any of my course lists. And I know I'm taking school in Canada, but we still read a lot of American novels. It's where I learned about lots of books. So it's strange to me that I hadn't even heard about it until last year. No, I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't picking the right courses. Anyways, for this book, I'm probably going to worry less about spoiling bits and pieces of it. I still won't give away the ending or anything like that. But I am going to talk a little more about specific scenes, I think, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I don't think it's a book where the way in which the plot unravels is that important. The whole book is very Kafka-esque. It is dreamlike in a quality. The protagonist goes from scene to scene, and it's all very bizarre. It feels like a fever dream at points. So the individual scenes have lots of meaning and symbolism behind them, but the way the actual plot unravels, you couldn't predict it even if you tried. So it's not like The Road where there's tension and you're like, what's going to happen next based on what they're setting up earlier in the novel. In this, it's kind of just like the main character is experiencing all these strange things, and they all mean something to him, and they'll mean something different to each reader probably, but it's not really a plot where you could guess what's going to happen next. It's quite bizarre. And that's part of the appeal. When I read it last year, when I started, I was like, what's going on? What is this? But you get kind of used to it. And now that there's some distance between me and finishing this book, I appreciate it a lot more. A lot of the themes of the book, I don't think I could properly express without going into slight detail about some of the scenes. So for that reason, I'm going to spoil it a little bit more. If you're really concerned and you really don't want to be spoiled at all, I would say just go read it. Anyways, where do I start? Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. First of all, if you do read this, be prepared for people going, oh, very scary movie. So many people confuse it for The Invisible Man, which is by H.G. Wells. Here's a spoiler. In Ralph Ellison's book, nobody is actually literally invisible. And I remember I was reading it, and like coworkers would be like, oh yeah, It's yeah, it's supposed to be a scary movie, and I just stopped correcting them at a point. I was like, no, it's actually it's not that. And then eventually, by the third time, I was like, yeah, it's a good book. This book is about a black American gentleman in his 20s. In his 20s, he lives in about the 30s or 40s, I believe. And actually, the timeline is a little confusing, which adds to the appeal. But the book's quintessentially about the experience of black people in America and the troubles that they face. Now, I am a white guy of vaguely European origin living in Canada. I can't speak with firsthand experience concerning the experience of the black American. However, what I thought was amazing about this book is how much of it feels pertinent to modern society. There's lots of themes in this book that are still being expressed in contemporary art, either films or TV or music or books. There's lots of things about living as a black man or woman in America that things have changed in some ways, but in some ways they haven't at all. And I thought that was, well, upsetting, but it's just still so resonant. So the big one, and this is a very vague question, is what does it mean to be black? What does it mean to be part of this culture that has been consistently and systematically marginalized for so long? What does it mean for your own personal identity? Do you feel it as a part of your identity at all, or do you feel like for yourself it's not necessarily something you wish you had to be concerned about? I feel like if you are a black individual in America, it's inevitably going to be affecting your experience living there. So how much do you make it a part of your identity? These are not things that I feel like white people really have to contend with as much. I mean, I'm sure there are places in the world where it's a thing, but just not in the same way. And in North America, like I don't think about the fact that I'm white ever. It's well, that's white privilege, I guess, isn't it? The book starts as a frame narrative, and it is the narrator who never goes named. He's just the invisible man, and he's living underground. Literally, it's suggested he's in the sewers, and he's about as literally invisible as you can be to society because he's removed himself from it. And he's a little bit bitter. He's very reflective on his life, and it goes from there. So he goes back to where his story started for him. And then from that first chapter, it's nothing short of memorable. At the start, he's very idealistic. He wants to work hard and he wants to succeed in ways that his parents and grandparents did not. He wants to go to college or university and he wants to make something of himself. And from the first chapter, he learns that that journey is going to look very different for him just by virtue of being black. He wins a scholarship to an all black college and he gets invited to speak at the ceremony during which he's going to receive this scholarship. He's so excited to start his journey and to make a name for himself. He's worked so hard on this speech he's going to give, and he's excited for how it will be received. And before anything happens at the ceremony, he gets put in a boxing ring with a bunch of other black individuals, and they get told to fight each other. And they all have to pound on each other as these old white guys are cheering them on. And it's completely degrading and humiliating and horrifying, and it's a very heightened form of racism. I mean, just the thought of putting all these young black guys in a ring to fight each other is horrific. And throughout the book, Ralph Ellison exaggerates racism to point out the ridiculousness of it and also to make you think about the ways in which things similar to that are actually happening. To what extent are black people made to work for the benefit or entertainment of wealthier white people? After the fight, he gives his speech and nobody's even listening. They're still laughing and, you know, getting wasted. And even if a scene like this has not actually happened, the scene of these older white guys being indifferent to this young, idealistic black individual is very true. It's happened over and over throughout history. Like, so it's a very powerful first chapter. And I believe that was a short story that then inspired him to flesh it out into a full book. And from there, it goes through so many, frankly, bizarre, haunting scenes that raise questions about different aspects of blackness. The main character really doesn't want to be seen as intelligent for a black guy. He wants to be seen as intelligent and hardworking and industrious, and he doesn't want his skin color to be a factor in that. And the unfortunate reality for him is that that's not up to him. There's points where he meets other black characters, and they take a different perspective on things. They've worked within this predominantly white system, and they play the game, so to speak. And it raises the question of, well, do you accept the hand you're dealt and work within this white system, or do you try to break free from it? It's still something that I think people are thinking about on a daily basis. There's one specific part of the book that sticks out to me, and I don't fully know why, but I have to describe the scene because I thought it was awesome. It was amazing. There's a point in the book where he's living in New York. He's trying to make a name for himself. He's working. And before work, he stops into a diner for breakfast, and he doesn't want to, what is it? He doesn't want to order some kind of pork chop or something because he feels it is stereotypical. I'm sorry, it's a really small scene, and I don't remember what the food specifically is, but he's conscious of the fact that if he eats it, it'll be seen as a stereotype, which again, not really something that white people have to worry about. But later in the book, he finds an old, kind of weathered black man. He's in the street with a little cart, and he's selling baked yams with brown sugar. And first of all, the way that Ralph Ellison describes this food is amazing. Like I would buy many. I would definitely eat these yams. They sound so good the way he describes it. And the smell of the yams takes the narrator back to his childhood. It's very nostalgic. It's a part of his heritage and his culture. But he's cognizant of the fact that it's a stereotype. Like he's worried about eating yams. But he buys one and he bites into it, and the way it's described in the book is so good. It makes you hungry. And I love I love parts of books that make you hungry. That's like one of my favorite things. And he winds up buying two more, and he says something to the effect of, why should I have to worry about whether I look like a stereotype? It's part of my childhood and I want to eat it. I know it's tough for me to say this without actually quoting the book. It seems a little silly, but take my word for it. The prose in this book is amazing. And actually, if you look at the Wikipedia page for the novel, there are quotes from old reviews, and they really minimize the talent of Ralph Ellison. Like, they say something to the effect of, it's a really good book for a black man. It is a very good book for anybody. There are passages of this book that are some of the best I've ever read, so let's just be clear on that. He's got an incredible way with words, and I think when I do get to rereading this, I'm going to make a point to either write down some of the quotes I really love or highlight parts, or I'm bad for not actually taking note of the parts I really liked, and then the book's here, and it's just like 600 pages of I don't remember where that was. So from now on, when I review books, I am going to take more notes, I promise. One theme that does come up is the question of, is my success because I am being tokenized? The narrator is a very eloquent guy, and he can give these incredible speeches, and there's a point where he works for a political party, basically. And at first he feels vindicated, like his talents are finally being recognized after a large part of the novel in which he's just beaten down over and over again by different jobs. But it gets to the point where he kind of realizes he is a talented guy, but he's in his position because they wanted a black man in that position to say to the world, look, we're inclusive. And it all feels so minimizing to him. And I feel like that must be something that people still experience. Okay, I'm kind of jumping back now, but I'm just thinking of another part that happens earlier in the book, and it's so great. I'm going to spoil it, so here it goes. He gets a job at a paint factory, and well, first of all, they make the whitest of white paints, but to make it that pure, they add some black chemical, a couple drops of it, and you mix it in, and it makes this very pure white paint. And there's a lot of symbolism there setting up the next scene. So he works at this paint factory, and he sees how they make the paint, and he goes down into the boiler room and gets a job there. And there's this very old, I think in his 70s or something, black gentleman, and he's working with a lot of the pipes and machinery down there, and a lot of it is essential to the factory, and if it shut down, they couldn't make paint. And he's the only guy who knows how to do it. But they keep him down in this sweaty, awful boiler room, and he's not paid very much. And the point is that lots of the efforts of these large corporations, a lot of them predominantly white, could not exist without essential black workers who weren't recognized for their necessity. And I mean, I think in 2021, we're recognizing people's talents and abilities and the necessity of their ingenuity and their labor, regardless of their skin color, more and more and more. But at the time this was written, I think that's a very, I guess I don't know how to put it in words. I just thought that was a really excellent scene. And it's definitely something that I feel is still relevant. There's characters he meets where they make their money by leaning into very demeaning stereotypes. There's entertainers who play the very stereotypical black man, and they do that for profit. So it's like, well, do you lean into that for your own gain? The narrator certainly doesn't feel like he wants to at all, but it brings up that conflict. If I had any criticisms of the book, I would say there's a part between the middle and the end that drags a little bit for me. There is a section of the book where it feels like there's not a lot going on. And it's a section of the book where he is hired by this political party again to be an orator. He makes these speeches, and it describes how he's winning over the audience with these great speeches, but it doesn't actually tell you any of them or show you any of them. So you just have to take the narrator's word for it that he's this really brilliant speech maker. I think it would have been nice to see a little bit more of his talents, but it just felt like to me there was a big part of the book dedicated to that success, when the interesting part is when he starts to realize what the party is using him for, and the how he starts to feel disenfranchised, I suppose. Anyways, there is more to the book after that, and it wraps up amazingly. Like, all the themes of the book kind of come to a head, and it becomes this nightmarish end scene. I don't want to spoil it, but it's bizarre and terrifying and holds a lot of symbolic meaning for, well, for the rest of the book, I guess. When the frame narrative is finished and we come back to the narrator underground, the last chapter is his final, I guess, thesis of the book. And it is written so beautifully and so eloquently, and it kind of just restates a lot of the importance from the book. I would say it wraps up perfectly. And for me, the parts in the middle where it dragged a bit were more than worth the finale. Even after kind of fighting through some of this book a little bit, I closed and I went, wow. I've gone back and reread that ending. It's still amazing. I think it'll be more amazing when I read the entirety of the book with it closing, because that's where it has most of its impact. Anyways, I think that's all I have to say. Definitely recommending Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. I still think about it all the time. I'm going to continue thinking about it until I read it again, which I will. If you've read the book, please tell me what you thought of it. If you feel I missed the mark on describing some of the themes, that's fair. I am not very smart. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. Tell me what I could be doing better. Tell me what I could be doing worse. Tell me what I'm too good at. That's stupid. That's so stupid. I guess I'll say bye for now. Thank you for watching again. I will see you again soon for more videos. Hopefully I tackled this book and this subject with enough tact, because it is honestly kind of nerve-wracking. I hope I didn't come off as some kind of authority on this novel or on racism, because I'm certainly not. I'm always learning, as we all are and should be. It has stopped dumping snow outside, so I'm going to go film a end title card with my new phone. So thank you. Bye.